There's no place like home, as you can imagine. But also, to me, I felt like I needed to get to my house, my safety zone. And, well, now that plants the seed of learning I get agoraphobia. I didn't know what the hell agoraphobia is. It's the best way to describe it to people is like, I can leave my house for a short amount of time, but beyond a 5-mile radius, I had to race back home.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. I'm your host, Todd Rennebaum. Hey, I got a really great episode here for you. I'm speaking with Mike Wolo, and he had a pretty serious accident about 15 years ago. It was so serious, in fact, he crushed his head. He had 10,000 pounds and it crushed his face, and it took a long time mentally, as well as physically, to get back to normal. I mean, he's still suffering today from different things, but he suffered from agoraphobia, PTSD, anxiety, depression, partly because his face became disfigured. But we'll talk all about that. Next week, I'm speaking with two people, Jake and Emily, and they are a couple. Jake suffers from antisocial personality disorder, Emily with borderline personality disorder and OCD, and they are both just amazing, incredibly sweet people who are trying to inform the world what it's like to live with a very serious cluster B personality disorder. So stay tuned for that next week. Also this week is the first week of giving away free money. $25 gift card for Co-op, and you can use that for fuel, food, hardware, whatever Co-op sells. This is very exciting. I mean, there's going to be so many weeks of this contest. It's incredible. So make sure to listen every week. Make sure to follow on Instagram, because sometimes the contest will be on there. So you kind of have to follow both. So to win this $25 this week, make sure you listen to the episode. Then at the end of the episode, I will ask a question. The answer to that question will be in the episode. And you just reply to bunnyhugspodcast@gmail.com, your answer. Then everyone that answered correctly will be put into a draw. A name will be drawn, and that person will win $25 from Co-op. Now, it's important to listen to every week, because some weeks it'll be $50. Some weeks the question may not be at the end of the episode, but rather on Instagram. So you have to make sure to follow me on Instagram, Bunny Hugs Podcast. Be sure to listen to all the episodes, and hey, tell other people about the podcast. So many people that consider the podcast a free mental health service because they receive so much free information, inspiration, and encouragement from my guests. It's critical to listen, encourage others to listen, rate and review on Apple so more folks can find the podcast and maybe hear something that they need to hear. With mental health and addiction services lacking everywhere right now, do someone the favor of just telling them about this podcast. You never know who's going to hear something that they need to hear. And the amazing thing is, the podcast, I speak with professionals, loved ones, people that are suffering, so you get all types of perspectives. Now back to this week's episode. Without further ado, I give you Mike Wolo.
I mean, as you know, a lot of mental health is usually something that either, obviously some of us are born with issues, some of us have a certain trauma. My trauma was 10,000 pounds of granite dropped in my head and crushed my face to less than 3 inches wide. And 2 7/8. I'm not sure. You guys do the metric system up there. Don't ask me to convert.
We do both because we still have, we have boomers that don't understand metrics. So
wasn't good before the accident, not good after with math. But so 10,000 pounds of granite dropped in my head and literally ripped my face apart. Broke my neck, my shoulders, my jaw ripped off, broke that in 3. My palate ripped off, broke that in 2. My left eye blew out of the socket and was down below where my chin should have been. And my whole face was literally just removed off the skull and, obviously still connected by the skin. And helping my friend of 27 years who owned a granite importing business, and the granite sheets at the it's stone that they usually use for kitchen countertops. So they're big flat sheets that are about 1.25 inches in thickness, 7 feet tall, 11 feet long, and they ship them overseas on the steel cargo containers. vertically rather than horizontally. So of laying down, they're standing up. And the only thing supporting the
Standing up 11
stone,
feet tall?
they were 7 feet tall, 11 feet
Oh,
long.
11 feet long. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha, gotcha. Oh, I
and
see. Instead of flat, you're
yeah,
saying
yeah,
there. Yeah, yeah,
17
yeah. Okay.
flat. And I have no idea if this is a video release podcast or it's audio only, but
Hopefully soon.
I would love. Otherwise, I'll give everybody my web page to look afterwards. And again, I'm not good at describing it. To be honest with you, without a good visual. But so they ship these vertically 7 feet tall, 11 feet long, and in bundles of 7 or 8. So the bundle that shifted while I was on my hands and knees waiting for the crane to get set in place and everybody else to kind of get set in place. My job was helping for the day, putting load straps underneath the stone, and somebody else is doing it at the other end, and the crane would lift it up, have it kind of get taut, and then I was to knock out the wood beams, get out of there, and they would place it on the ground on some A-frame racks to store them there. So I'm on my hands and knees waiting for everybody to do their thing. I hear my friend David screaming at the top of his lungs, and all I'm thinking is, what's he screaming at now? We were just having like one of those days and nothing was really going well. I didn't want to help him. I said no that day, and he begged, and his father begged to help, and I showed up reluctantly, but he's screaming, and then all of a sudden the gentleman that was helping me, he comes running from the rear part of the container that's open with the doors, and kind of grabs me by the shoulder and gets me to start running, because didn't realize my friend David had saw the sheets were starting to move and they were falling towards me. So, and you don't hear it. You're right next to it. It's moving silently, and you just when you're next to a wall, you don't notice it moving until okay, now you start running. And the last thing I remember is just kind of looking up and seeing a wall coming at me. And David said he saw my face, and he said I tried to put my shoulder into it to try to stop it, which wasn't going to do jack. And the weight of the stone, which the true weight's 9,600 pounds. I exaggerate a lot by saying it's 10,000, but the stone slammed into the other wall of the steel container, which we had another bundle of stone there as well, and hit it so hard that the tractor trailer started going up on its side and then uprighted. So that the sound had to be incredible. I mean, you had to hear that from so far away, and it had me pinned by the head. So the point of impact was my left temple. So it crushed everything from my left temple down. And he said, once everything started moving around, the stone was, kind of like an A landing, on top of my temple. And he said the top part of my head was sticking out of the stone, and it looked like a big, huge mushroom ready to explode. The bottom part was just blood and just, body parts kind of moving around from my face. And I was lifeless. I was dead approximately 5 or 6 minutes. And, meanwhile, his brother comes running out with his father out of the building. His brother and I really, were the friends growing up, and David was his older brother. And, we all hung out from time to time quite a bit. And they all, obviously went into shock, screaming, crying, anything you do, seeing your friend laying there dead 27 years. And then David kind of just snapped out of it. He just went, you know what? We have 6 minutes, I think, to get him breathing again before he has brain damage. Like, let's get it off him. So he and his dad get up on the back into the steel container and start redoing all the straps. And the granite, when it fell on my head, it actually went from 8 sheets of stone. It broke in half over my head. And now I have 16 pieces of stone on my head. And the 16 pieces are kind of acting like a hinge. So they are screaming at the crane operator to lift it off my head. Crane operator is like, no, let's wait for the fire department to get here, which, the fire department's not going to be able to lift 10,000 pounds of stone, obviously. So
what are they going to do? Spray you with water?
yeah, well, I understand. I to defend him liability wise in a situation like this, they're kind of instructed like, hey, it's an accident. Don't do anything. Wait for the proper people to get there. But when you already know I'm dead, like, you know what? Give me a chance. And so the shop next door was actually a granite fabrication shop. So like 6 or 7 of my friends, actually, my Brazilian friends own the business. And so they come running outside and they start climbing up on the crane. They're going to yank the guy out and just, you control it and lift it themselves. So he realized he was going to probably get hurt if he didn't do something. So he just lifts the stone up enough so my body just drops down. And everybody described it just like a sack of potatoes. And the other gentleman that was helping out that day in the back of the container with me, his name was Anthony. He jumped underneath this now, the very dangerous situation of, moving stone over me, pulls me out. And then AJ and David and Anthony and the father, they kind of lift me upside down because they couldn't give me mouth to mouth. I don't have a mouth at this point, but they know, okay, well, we need to get breathing, and they know I'm probably choking on blood. So obviously kind of cleared out my pathway that way, and I started kicking. So that was kind of good news. So they
started tipped you upside down just to like gravity drain out the blood in your lungs. Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly. So
that's pretty smart thinking.
Yeah. I mean, and once again, who would think of these things? And when you're like, okay, he's done. If you saw what they saw, and I know they've suffered. You want to talk about mental health and PTSD, like David. He can never talk about it again, probably. And AJ's stronger, but I mean, I ruined their day. And poor Anthony, it was his birthday, so I ruined his birthday forever. So
why am I talking to you then? I should be talking to them.
Yeah, exactly. Let me look it up. But I had the easy part because I didn't witness it. That I do feel for them for what they had to go through. But they took turns holding my head together because they said they could see inside my skull, so they're kind of trying to keep it closed because of the blood. They said was just pouring out. So finally, police officer shows up. He's like, okay, what the hell just happened? So he gets a med kit out of the back of his vehicle and kind of slides it over to them. Well, there's nothing in a first aid kit that's going to do much here.
Put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, a couple of Band-Aids. At this point, I'm losing. They estimated 6 pints of blood, and a person my size back then, I only weighed about 163, 164 pounds. So I only had 9 to 10 pints of blood in me. So finally the EMT showed up, and they just said, oh, their face is just like, oh, great, this isn't good. So threw me in the gurney, brought me into the ambulance. I met with the EMTs and after the fact, and they kind of explained to me, they opened up 2 1-liter containers of blood, and they said it was just going in and going right back out. So they had already called a med flight. It was on standby down the street at a shopping mart.
Wait, you said liters?
Yes. Yeah. Does that make sense? Give him a gallon of blood, or how about a couple of liters of blood? Just a couple pints, perhaps. But
did you say liters because I'm Canadian?
Yeah. No, that they go by liters for blood here.
Oh. Weird.
Just to really make it confusing, rather than quarts, I guess.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Well, you have to have a sense of humor after a trauma like this. I think humor helps me get through life. So, at that point, my body's starting to shut down. Vitals are starting to go bad. So, med flight grabs hold of me. They take me up to Boston, which has a level 1 trauma center there. The best around you can possibly find.
I thought I heard a Boston accent.
Yeah. Don't you love how we park our cars?
Wicked awesome.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg must be proud of me right now. But Ben and Matt must be watching, But they flew me in there. I had a whole staff waiting there for me, and they were amazing, quick response, and pull me in, get me into a MRI or a CT scan or probably all the above, and obviously you had to see what hidden traumas are there. And at that point, started notifying family. David and AJ were calling my family like, you need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. It's not looking good. And
were you married at this point?
I'm sorry?
Were you married and kids at this point?
No, thank goodness, to be honest with you. I was 32 years old. Actually, this fall will be my 20-year anniversary. So here it is 20 years later, and, life's good. And that's why I need to get the story out there to kind of encourage people. Like, there really is life after a trauma.
Right.
You have to
Right.
navigate it a little bit differently. You have to, know that you're rewired differently and navigate. But yeah,
So
so
when they contacted your family, it was like your parents and
yeah, parents. I
that
have
kind of
four
thing. Okay.
brothers, so they all
Gotcha.
go racing in there. The accident happened around 2:20, 2:30 in the afternoon. Um, they meet with the chief medical surgeon, Dr. Hirsch. I have to give a shout out to Dr. Hirsch because simply amazing individual, and he put together an amazing team for me to get me reconstructed and whatnot. But he kind of made it clear, sitting with my family in a conference room, like it's not good. He's very sick. You might want to just go in there and say goodbye, like say what you need to say. So my
Mm.
brothers went in first. Now it's around 9:30 in the evening. Um, obviously I'm in a coma. I look like hell at this point. The head swelling my head was larger than a basketball, like literally, beyond the size of a basketball. And they said like my ears were like curled up, like little weird, like cauliflowers. And my eyes looked like, they were so swollen and kind of pushed back into the skull that, looked like miniature eggplants because they were so dark and purple. But you could see just two slits. So next thing you know it, my brothers are in there and I wake up. But I can
Mm.
only see like tunnel vision. I can only see down by my feet. I can't really see to the sides, but I see my second oldest brother, Steve's, standing by my feet. And I can just, all I notice is wires and cables and tubes all over my chest. So I start trying to get up. And my oldest brother, John, is on my right shoulder. And he's kind of all of a sudden grabs hold of my hand. And like, I think he just woke up. And the nurse is like, no, that's just not possible. He's probably just twitching and so on. And my brother's like, well, he squeezed my hand. She's like, no, that's not possible. So my brother whispers in my ear, Mike, if you understand what I'm saying, squeeze my hand once for yes, two for no. So of course I squeeze it as hard as possible. And so now she's like, okay, he can't do that. So my youngest brother, Mark, he's down by my left foot. He goes running down the hallway to get my parents, who are still in there with the surgeon. My surgeon, the surgeon's like just said to him, like, Mike has a 2% chance of survival. And boom, door gets kicked open, and like Mike's awake. And next, and it's not. I remember it wasn't a very big room, but it filled up like with 14 people in it instantly. It was insane mayhem. Doctors, nurses. It's a learning hospital as well. So you have a bunch of students with the surgeons as well, and room fills up instantly. My family's kind of like high fiving each other, like, okay, hey, there's a chance. And so now Dr. Hirsch is like, everybody out, like except for left my parents in the room,
Mm.
and they're sitting there quizzing me. And of course, I feel like absolute hell. I to describe physical pain, your whole body's literally swelling up in agony. And all I remember is the nurse handed me a little wired remote with a button. And she's like, if you're in any pain, click this button. And I'm clicking it like a video game. I couldn't stop clicking the remote
Like a
because
Jeopardy contestant.
literally exactly. And I am pressing that sucker and didn't realize, it's morphine. And well, morphine for me is not good. It was,
Mm.
the hallucinations were
Mm.
horrendous. It's a yucky feeling to say the least. But yeah, that kind of got me through a little bit. I kept on trying to get out of the bed. Apparently, over a course of a couple of days, I needed reconstruction. I had to wait for the swelling to go down. They induced me in a coma for a day or two just because I kept on trying to take off because I was convinced with my anxiety now, my newborn anxiety, like I need to get the hell out of here. They're trying to kill me. Um, you know, I
Was
get
that part of the
reconstructed.
morphine too?
Well,
Like,
yeah, anxiety. It's the morphine. It's I keep having. Now at this point, I have a trach tube. I broke my neck, so I'm wearing a neck brace.
uh,
My mouth's wired shut because obviously it got destroyed. I got I get an amazing surgeon, Dr. Rafi Dersakissian, who gets called in to reconstruct my face, and I believe it was Halloween when he reconstructed it. So I'm in the ICU, more morphine, and I'm hallucinating, and they have like the radio on, and what is on the radio that evening but like a radio rendition of Night of the Living Dead from like 19, was that 68, 64? If you remember that movie.
Yeah.
Well, they apparently had a radio version of it. And that's playing, and I'm on the morphine, and now I'm convinced that they're trying to eat me.
Oh
So
my
I'm
God.
trying to beeline it out of there. Next, the nurses come running in the room because I'm pulling off all the cables, off all the bandages, and they're trying to hold me down. They're like, Michael, you don't want it to be restrained, do you? And of course, I'm thinking they're trying to eat my brain, so I'm swinging at them. So I get restrained, and yeah, that was the start of having anxiety, having
Mm.
just like, okay, this is not good. I need to get out of here. A couple close calls, days later, the trach tube would clog up and I'd stop breathing and, without. So finally it got to the point, my mom, after I explained to my parents, like, if you leave me here one more day, I'm going to be dead by tomorrow. And at that point,
You could talk at that point?
no, I'm
Oh.
writing. I'm writing
Oh,
all
I see.
this. Not
Mm.
well, but I'm writing. And I
Mm.
kept, actually, I still have every single piece of paper that I wrote on. And I just remember just writing like, I will be dead by tomorrow afternoon, because I kept on choking on what was coming up from the trach tube. And my mom, whipped off her jacket, threw it on the chair, and it's like, okay, I'm staying. And told my family, my brothers, my father, like, go home, bring me back a suitcase, grab me, clean clothes, this and that. She slept on a chair for almost 2 weeks. I know it was
Mm.
over a week, but it wasn't quite 2 weeks. And she ended up saving me again that evening. And come to find out, they were, accidental. They were feeding me through a G tube through my stomach, but they had me recline too much, and that was making it come back up when I was sleeping
Mm.
through the trach tube and choking. So new nurse went on shift, and my mom told her, "Hey, this is what's going on. My son keeps choking here." And she's like, "Well, he's way too reclined. He shouldn't be like that." And so, yeah, so being in a hospital,
Mm.
I can't knock the hospital. I can't knock the care is given to, wonderful people. There's might be a couple people that maybe they be better. I don't even know if I hired them to sweep my garage out, sort of say, not trying to be disrespectful, but they kind of sucked at what they did. But then the
Yeah.
rest of them made up for it. The rest of them were just unbelievable. The care given, them knowing what I'm going through and understanding that, okay, this guy isn't here for some free morphine. This guy's here, you know, serious reconstruction. By the end, I had 110 screws and 20 titanium plates in my face alone. So at that point, yeah, it's
Mm.
so I was in the
Titanium
hospital.
mic.
Titanium mic, exactly. So I get released after 2 weeks. At that point, my swelling was going down, as the doctor saying, like, yeah, okay, we never seen healing go down this quick. So, like, that's amazing. We're going to put you in the books. Like, but you're out of here. Like, there's nothing more we can do here. And you just sticking around the hospital, is not good because you can get ill and whatnot. So I get sent
Mm.
off to a rehab hospital and kind of start relearning, balance and whatnot, because laying in a hospital bed for 2 weeks, your body literally deteriorates, your muscle. I went from 163, 164 pounds to, I think it was like 139 pounds in 2 weeks.
Mm.
And so I get to the rehab hospital, and same thing, slow start. But by the end of the first week, they almost were able to release me, because I was just like, okay, I was convinced if I can get out of the hospital, at least get in the rehab hospital, I'll be clear. I'll be okay. I just needed to get out of the hospital, because it's just not a pleasant place. If you can imagine the horrors of what you hear in the middle of the night. You don't get to sleep deprivation. They're waking you up. I think it was every 45 minutes to check my vitals. So
Mm.
you go cuckoo, not sleeping for maybe 6, 7, 8 hours. That took some time to get that, but the rehab hospital, I was in there for 2 weeks, and I was back home in 32 days from post accident,
Mm.
and
And
and that's when my new life began.
yeah. Did you move in with your parents then, or?
Yeah, I was fortunate. My parents, lived 10 houses up the street from me,
Mm.
so I lived there for about a week, and at that, I was just making leaps and bounds every day. I go out for a walk and try to build up strength.
I think I'd
And
rather stay in the hospital than my parents' place, to be honest with
yeah,
you.
well, hey, my mom's, was 100% Sicilian, can cook like the most amazing food. I had it, unfortunately, eat it, through a straw, kind of, it was being pureed because my mouth was wide shut for like 5 or 6 weeks solid. Um, so that part was really bad.
Mm.
But no, home care was amazing. And, I kind of felt at that point, like I want to try to move back into my house. I miss my dogs. My parents brought my dogs up there, but, there's no place like home, as you can imagine. But also to me, I felt like I needed to get to my house, my safety zone. And
Mm.
well, now that plants the seed of learning I get agoraphobia, which is,
Mm.
I didn't know what the hell agoraphobia is. It's the best way to describe it to people is like, I can leave my house for a short amount of time, but beyond a 5 mile radius, I had to race back home. Like I would drive up to Maine to go visit. My parents had a little cottage up in Maine, at a campgrounds, and I drive 2.5, 3 hours to go see them. And I'd be there for like an hour or so, and like, okay, I think I need to go home. And like, what do you mean? You just got here. You're staying the night. It's like I didn't know I had it, but I'd get bad anxiety. You know, what's it? Fear of fight or flight or fight or whatever. I
Yeah.
became,
Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
yeah, and I became really difficult. And this went on for, I couldn't work for 2 years. So during that 2 years, you see many doctors, you see many, specialists and whatnot. You end up seeing a psychiatrist.
Mm.
And, you explain all this to a psychiatrist, but the psychiatrist actually never came out and told me I had agoraphobia. And the most important thing about all this is self-awareness. Now I'm back up in Maine visiting my parents again. My brothers are up there. We're all going to spend the whole week up there. It's going to be awesome. We're going to go out in Sebago Lake, just hang out on the boat. And I get there, and yeah, sure enough, within an hour of being there, I'm like picking fights with all my brothers. Now, mind you, I'm the runt of the litter. I'm the smallest of five boys, and 5'7" on a very good day. And I'm picking fights. I'm starting fights for no reason. I'm just looking for excuse to say, "Fuck it, I'm going home," and jump in my truck. I grab my dogs, and I just remember I get down the street about 10 miles, and I just became self-aware. I'm like, this is not me. There's something wrong here. I end up calling my primary physician, and I'm like, Dr. Hartman, something's wrong. And I explained to him what just happened. He goes, okay, well, hold on. Let me pull your file up. He was well aware of everything I was going through, and he knew I was seeing a psychiatrist. He goes, oh, Mike, you have you know, moderate agoraphobia. I'm like, well, what the hell's that? He starts laughing. He goes, okay, obviously, Dr. Michael didn't tell you that. So he goes, what's the closest thing to you? Rite Aid, CVS? I'm like, yeah, Rite Aid up the street. He goes, I'm going to prescribe something for you to get you through the rest of the week. Don't do serious drinking at all on it. It was like Klonopin, I think.
Mm. Okay.
And,
Yep.
yep. And he goes, see me as soon as you get back. And when I got back, he kind of explained what this was. And like I said, I think what helped me was, okay, self-awareness. But I had it, and I had to deal with it. So now I have anxiety. Now I have depression. After your post surgery and post accident, my head, the swelling went down quite a bit, but you now look like Quasimodo's younger, uglier brother.
Mm.
And you don't want to go out in public because everybody's
Mm-hmm.
staring at you. So you go out in public, people are staring at you. People actually, had no problem coming over and ask me, what happened? You get a hockey stick, to the face. And it's like,
I wish.
oh, yeah, exactly. I'm like, I had 10,000 pounds of granite dropped in my head. What's your excuse? And they're like, oh shit,
Why
I'm
are
sorry.
you ugly?
Yeah. But, I kind of got to the point, like, I started being more proud of the fact, like, yeah, it wasn't a hockey stick. It was 10,000 pounds of granite. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, I'm fine with it. Actually, the more I talked about it, the more it helped me. But I kind of started thinking about the people out there who would not be good with that. Like, it's human nature to be curious. So
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. And, we've all done it, especially when we were younger, you'd stare at somebody who might have been missing a limb or whatever, or had an accident, or, was wearing an eye patch. So of course you stare and you're like, geez, I wonder what happened. So, so that took a while to, kind of get over people staring, people pointing. At this point, AJ, and David were coming over all the time, and they know I was kind of regressing and, wouldn't leave the house. So AJ every night, late at night, and I mean 6 or 7 nights a week, would drag me out to the local pub, go out in the back room, and we'd hang out back there, and just the bartenders all knew me and all that, and knew us, and knew that I'd have my privacy back there, and they'd be protecting me like brothers. And that's, that helped me get back to society and overcome some of my fears of being out in public, and, cool down the anxiety without, the psychiatrist did prescribe some type of antidepressant at the time. But, for somebody who doesn't do drugs or never has, getting on a daily pill that you take, I'm not sure how many times a day. I knew after like a couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't like the feelings that are going through my head. You starting to give, I'm not gonna say suicidal thoughts, but closing in on suicidal thoughts. And I call the doctor. I'm like, I want off. And he goes, you can't. Once you start it, you have to do it for, I think, 3 months. And you have to, and you can't go cold turkey. You have to wean off of it. I'm like, are you shitting me? I don't want to be on this, but I kind of now committed. So once again, self-awareness. I knew I didn't like being on it. I knew I have to let it take its toll and know if a little scary little monster in my head's telling me to harm myself or others, don't do it. And and coming off of it was, really bad. You definitely, suicidal thoughts, but once again, I knew not to do it. Yeah, I know you. I've listened to some of your podcasts, so I know you can appreciate and understand. What did it take to help you? Self-awareness and obviously a lot of help. It's I've gotten the help.
Brutal honesty with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So so I just time. It took 8 years. 8 years to get back to normal. 8 years of overcoming my fears, overcoming anxiety, depression. I couldn't work for 2 years. And that's based off, okay, you're depressed because you have no money in your pocket. You got to pay the bills. The dogs are eating better than you. You don't look that great. You don't feel that great. You're in daily pain. At this point, I'm taking nothing for the pain. I have some ibuprofen. The doctor was kind of proud of me that I chose, not to get prescribed meds. He's like, don't try to be a superhero. I'm like, no, I can tolerate pain during the day. It's nighttime that when you're trying to mentally, during the daytime, you use your brain to kind of mentally shut off the pain. You just find things to distract you.
Yeah.
Trying to sleep at night, you just want to go to sleep. You don't have to think about shutting off the pain. So, still to this day, I have that problem of, not getting good night's sleep because of just different pain. And so
20 years later, you still have physical pain from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also getting older. I'm going to be 52 in a couple days. So, it's, your back hurts, your shoulders are junk. I can tell you when I know it's going to rain. It's, my facial pain, it's tender in different spots. I have less feeling in certain spots, but more feeling than I should. So I'm kind of grateful for that, especially where I had no mouth.
Today's episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is brought to you by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for, about 25 years, I think. My co-op is one of more than 150 local independent cooperative associations in more than 600 communities across Western Canada. Co-op is a different kind of business. It's not just a gas bar or a grocery store, although co-op is those things too. At its core, co-op is a group of people working together to help their neighbors and build their community. Co-op members are owners, and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at coop.crs.
But my shoulders, I tore the rotator, I broke the clavicle, I fractured my C1, my C2. I should have been paralyzed. So I'm grateful to be able to, do everything I do and stay active. But paying the price is dealing with the pain. And does it get old? Yeah, but if it means I get to live old, then sure, let's bring it. You embrace pain. So one way I embraced the pain after the 8 years, I let myself get out of shape. When you couldn't eat for like how many weeks because your mouth's wired shut, and when you can start eating again, you're going to eat. You're going out every night drinking. You're going to start eating, and you're going to pack on some weight, and you go from 140 pounds, when you get out of the hospital to I got up to like 200. For a short person, that's not good. I look like a weeble. If you remember those from your childhood.
Weevils wobble, but they won't fall down.
Exactly. So, talking about falling down, getting up is part of falling down, right? And so I see myself in a picture one day that my niece gave me, and I'm like, oh my God, I look awful. I have multiple chins. My head's just, getting to be the size of a basketball. I'm like, this is terrible. So I started working out again, started jogging, getting back into shape. And next, David and AJ are playing for a semi-pro football team, and like, hey, you want to work out with the team? You'll get in great shape. I'm like, oh, okay. I start working out with the team after a few weeks. You're getting fantastic shape working out with the football team. Let me tell you. I wasn't wearing pads. I was just doing all the the exercises they do during practices, whatnot, and drills. Next, coach comes over to me and goes, hey, enough of this shit. Go get some equipment. Our first game's this Saturday. Why don't you come play? I'm like, Coach, are you serious? I'm like,
wait, how old are you then?
At this point, it was literally, I think it's 3-4 days before my birthday. So it's a few weeks before my birthday anyway. So I'm going to be 40 years old. So I'm 39 at this point. And I'm like, Coach, I'm twice the age of most of the kids on the team. I got 110 screws and 20 plates holding my face together. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm 5'6 3/4, whatever you want to call it on a good day. And he's like, you could be the backup to the backup to the backup. He goes, it would just be good to have more guys on the bench, help mentor the kids. I'm like, okay. Like, I love football.
What position
football,
was he thinking?
Backup, bench warmer, whatever they need, ball boy. No, we figured I'd be the backup to help out on special teams, maybe kickoff returns, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
Couple hours before the first game, coach is sitting there looking at his clipboard, sitting on the ground, chilling out. And he looks at me and goes, hey, Wongo, because he can never get my name right. They call me Wongo instead of Wolo. And he's like, you ever play the line? I'm like, yeah, I played defensive, nose tackle all through high school. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, all right. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm like, they don't expect the little guy against, the offensive lineman. And he goes, well, we need help on the line today. I want to save whatever we have for big guys for offense. Can you play defense? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, now, mind you, I've been working out with the team for the last how many weeks, but I haven't done a full contact practice yet. So I run out, I had to go get, pads and a helmet and whatnot. I go to shop at like a local, Dick's Sporting Goods or something like that. I remember, a person comes over to help me. He's like, do you need help? I'm like, yeah, where the adult size, helmets and pads. Like, okay, well, how old's your child? I'm like, I don't have any kids. Like, well, who are you buying the equipment for? I'm like, me. And like, kind of looked at me up and down like, oh God. Like, okay, well, no, you need to go to the, the pro shop down the street. And I said, okay. So I went down there. It was like the same thing. Like, oh, okay, how old's your kid? I'm like, no, it's me. And I got gray hairs and stuff. So, but I get the equipment, get to the field, and now I get asked to play. So I'm like, okay, so boom, we do a kickoff, and now it's time to huddle up. And there I am, raising my hand, like, huddle up. And I go to line up against a guy whose name was Weeble. That's what his nickname was on the team. I think he was 6 foot, according to the stats, he was 6'2", 360 pounds. And he was just a
Oh,
wall of flesh. So I
good
line up.
God.
He's playing left tackle. I'm
You
playing
speared
right.
him.
What's that?
You speared him.
Yeah, no.
No.
So ball gets hiked, and I run right by him. He is so big, they're not expecting the little guy to just jump that quick. I was actually shocked for being my age that I had a step and a half on him. That I kept on getting by him, kept on getting to the quarterback, and just missing getting a quarterback sack, and kept on flushing the quarterback out of the pocket. So this goes on for like the first half of the game. Now they pull out Weeble and bring in this guy who looks like Terry Crews, the former
Yeah.
football player, and Terry. He looks like Terry Crews. He's talking smack. What the fuck are you, the water boy? So he's talking, and I say nothing. When I play, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to talk smack because, well, look at me. And after I get by him for like 2 or 3 plays, now he's yelling out, instead of trash talking, now he's like, I got the little guy on this side. Because now we start rotating. I start flip flopping on the either side of the ball. And I end up at halftime, we go in the locker room, and the coach is like, where's my little guy? He goes, okay, that's your position. That's yours. And I ended up playing that for just over 2 full seasons and retired on my
Wow.
43rd birthday. So
Good
talking
Lord.
about, dreams, you know, play, playing through pain, it was worth it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm already living with pain. Why not play football? And, as long as I don't, of course, my parents were kind of pissed. Like, you know what? Do we really need to see this happen? But, that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So,
I've been crushed by worse. What's a couple dudes crushing me?
yeah, exactly. About 500-600 pounds worth of bodies laying on you. But, did that. And during that time, I was building my confidence because I was very insecure about my height growing up. You talk about insecurities, anxiety. I'm like, I'm not a good looking guy. I'm an average looking guy. I'm no Brad Pitt, and I'm 5 foot nothing on a good day. So you're very insecure talking to women and so on and so forth. And now it's post accident. And now you're like, man, I'd do anything to have my old face back. You sit
Mm.
there and say, what, who am I to bitch over how tall I was or how ugly or, plain looking or whatever. But,
Am I
now
stupid too?
I'm kind of stupid. You're
The
stupid or
trifecta.
something. No, but you sit there and you're like, you have regrets of,
Yeah.
man, missed opportunities growing up. You know what? And come to find out, the doctor that reconstructed me, Dr. D, we call him, he tells me, Mike, you're actually the perfect height. I look at him, I'm like, why do you say that? He goes, well,
Mm.
if you were any shorter, your brains would have been squashed. And if you were any taller, you were decapitated.
Decapitated. Yeah.
So it took me, getting my head crushed to get over insecurities. And, I feel indestructible now. I don't give a shit how tall or how big you are. It's not about how big you are. It's about who you are as a person. And post accident, trying to find myself again of who the new Mike is. And
Hmm.
I'm more confident now in my life than I ever have been in my life. And I'm more successful now. I work harder. I'm more driven now. I have to concentrate twice as hard. I mean, I had a traumatic brain injury.
Mm.
You had to
Yeah, I was
relearn.
going to ask that if it,
You
it if it affected your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice it when I was in the rehab hospital, and you meet with the specialist, and they're trying to have you do games or word games, and I just want to get the hell out of there. I just want to go home, and I didn't understand why they were doing this. I'm like, I don't want to take another test. I already did all that in high school and college, but I didn't realize they're testing me for a brain injury. So my parents
Mm.
come. My mom calls me at the hospital, and she's crying, and my mom, is tough like a pit bull, and there she is crying, saying, "Well, Doctor So and So called. She said you had a brain injury, And I'm like, "What? No, I don't think I have a brain injury. I'm pissed now." So I I go wheeling down the wheelchair down to her office, kick open the door. I'm like, hey, like brain injury. Who the hell, you didn't have my permission to tell my mother that. Like, I don't think I have a brain injury. At this point now that the trach tube's kind of removed, I have to kind of like hold something over it to kind of speak.
Mm.
And at that point, she was, well, you didn't test well. I'm like, yeah, but the test you're giving me, I don't want to do. Like, I just want to get out of here. She'll really, I'm like, she's like, what did you do for work before the accident? Like, well, I was a kitchen and home designer. So yeah, I'm like, yeah. And I saw the around the office. I'm like, want me to design a kitchen in here right now for you? She goes, oh yeah, sure. So I'm like, okay, where would you want your refrigerator? Where would you want your sink? Oh, well, I want my sink here. I want my microwave here. And I'm like, well, you can't put the microwave in the corner because the cabinet next to it won't open because it's slam against it. You can't put your oven right there because it's next to your trash and that's going to, create bacteria. So I start coming up with all these obstacles. Oh, you don't have the 36-inch clearance for ADA requirements. So she's like, oh, shit. Because she gave me a tape measure. And I was going around the room measuring. So my mother gets a phone call the next day saying he doesn't have a brain injury. I might have regretted that later if I knew then what I know now. And that, because I had a lawsuit from the companies that caused the accident. I did have a traumatic brain injury. And it was my own pride in trying to calm my parents that I'm fine. I don't have a brain injury. But now I have two little boys. I read to them every night and I hear what I'm saying and what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, what I'm reading. Don't jive. I'm reading the wrong words. I'm doing stuff. I'm also dyslexic. Why don't we just keep it going, right? But so that was a different obstacle in life to have to navigate through. You got anxiety, depression, sleep deprivation, traumatic brain injury, PTSD. Although, like I said, that part, like me watching TV and have like a hospital scene on TV and listening to all the beeps and shit. Yeah, I don't like that.
Right.
I'm better.
So you don't remember the actual accident? Do you remember?
That part doesn't bother me. In fact, the first piece of granite that hit me in the head, that's my bathroom right now. Payback's a bitch.
No, really?
I had to make a countertop out of it. So
that's amazing.
So, called facing your fears. And sometimes you might have to have a little sick sense of humor. Like the company thought I was crazy. I don't give a shit. Just hose off the blood. Let's, make it into
a gravestone.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole not get too far out of my head, but yeah, no, but it's so I've done well with that. Once again, it took 8 years, and it took a lot of self-awareness and kind of relearn what you want, what you don't want in life, and you had your good days, you had bad days, but since I met my wife, it's mostly good days. I'll tell you. I mean, when it's a bad day, it's only because I burnt dinner or something. Getting it ready for the surprise wife, or like it's minor shit, and I am grateful, extremely grateful of where I'm at now because the support system I had is why I'm here. My family, my friends. There's people out there who don't have a great support system or have zero support system, and I can understand mental health because what I just dealt with, I had the tools to help me. But there's people out there who don't have the tools. You talk about healthcare systems pretty effed up. And you're up in Canada. It's, I think it's better up there than it is down here in the States. But
it's free, but it can be effed up too.
Well, exactly. It's free, but are you waiting a long time to get the doctor you really want, or you have to settle the one that like, okay, well, here's a kid just came out of college, and you're going to get that doctor instead, who doesn't have the experience. Mm-hmm. So you have to take the good and the bad and pray that you make it to the right side of things. And medications, getting the right medications for right individuals. I was fortunate to know that the meds I was trying didn't work for me. And I really did not want to be on meds. So I had to work a lot to figure out a way, how can we not have, need meds and navigate and be a good person and be, something in society that's not a psycho.
So through that 8 years, did you see a counselor or a therapist or any kind of professional? Yeah.
Yep, I did. Okay. That definitely helped. At times you were sitting there going like, is this really helping? But you don't see it until some time has passed, and you compare notes as to, when you first started seeing them to near the end of seeing them, and say, well,
Right.
I did make strides. And you get to the point, I think, when I don't need this anymore. I'm in a good place. And once again, everything around me, I was fortunate, was going in the right direction. 2010, the housing market collapsed. I get laid off from being a kitchen home designer. I go back into telecom field because that's what I was doing during college and after college for a while. And I've been doing that. I work for a great company, and I kind of feel like we kick ass together. It's a good match. It's a good company, and they're aware of, yeah, I had a accident and all that, and they encourage me, like, you got an idea, so spit it out, kid. And I
They still call you kid?
sometimes I'm an immature guy. I'm a big kid. Let me tell you, I think anybody in my work you talk to will tell you I'm a big kid. I still watch cartoons. Why not? Every Saturday morning, the boys and I are watching old Looney Tunes. They're trying to drop anvils in my head now, but
So it's time again for that Some Bunny special. It's a segment where we chat about who cooperated in your mental health journey and help fulfill your emotional tank, brought to you by Co-op. So who was there for you? I mean, I'm sure there's more than one person, but it could have been your dog, could have been a doctor, could have been a loved one.
You know what? I got to say, David and AJ, my parents, my brothers, I mean, it's hard to really give more attention to one person, not the other. Like there's
Right.
just so many, it takes a village, so to speak. But David and AJ, I think, dragging me out every night for how many years, and actually, getting them a journey of, fulfilling a dream of playing semi-pro football at 40 years old, like that. Some people might say I was insane, but you know what? People with mental health, health issues, like, actually, it was fantastic. Get things, off your mind and put it on in a physical activity. Keeping physical keeps a healthy mind, in my opinion. So,
and that built your confidence up.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you met a woman and you were short, ugly, and stupid.
Yeah. She lost a bet, so obviously. Actually,
you won a bet.
You're the Bunny Hugs podcast, so I'm going to tell you why bunnies mean a lot to my wife and I.
Okay.
My wife, her two older brothers, her oldest brother and I, were really good friends in high school. They moved here from Alabama my sophomore year of high school. My wife is 10 years younger than me, so
wow, well done.
Yeah. Like I said, she lost a bet, so you'll like this. So I called the house one day, and her brother Rob answers the phone. I hear yelling, screaming in the background, and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, Becca's rabbit died this morning. She's inconsolable. She's house is in lockdown. It's brutal. I felt terrible. I'm like, okay, I'm 17, she's 7. So I had just fixed my Jeep. I just put a new clutch in it. And so I drove down to the local mall and the little pet store, and I bought her a new bunny, and came back, gave it to her, and she never forgot that. And Scamper was his name, and he lived for 8 years, which I guess is very long for a rabbit. But that's something later in life that helped me, because, here it is 30 some odd years later, and she always, I guess, a special place in her heart. I had for her. And so when all of a sudden we're hanging out again and she kissed me, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I got to talk to your brothers about this. I'm a big girl. I know what I'm doing. It's not a rebound thing or anything. She's like, nope, you gave me a bunny, and well, good deeds go unpunished. So,
wow, that bunny was a real investment.
Worth every penny. Every penny. So highly recommend it.
I'm curious, how, like, the folks that got you into help that day, there must have been a lot of guilt and shame and just all types of. So, and have you forgiven them, or how's your relationship?
It was David who called me that morning, begging me to help him that day, and I'm like, no, I don't like helping you out with that stuff. It's dangerous. I didn't like it. I'd help him out once in a while, But I was a kitchen and home designer. I had no experience being what they would call a rigger. And I don't do
Mm-hmm.
rigging. I just, yeah, I'll help drive a forklift once in a while, but like, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me like 2 or 3 times that morning. And I remember it was a Friday morning. It was a beautiful autumn day. I had just taken my dogs out for a walk. So next, his dad gives me a call. And his dad's just a really, really nice man. It's just a hard person not to like. And he calls me. He goes, Mike, look, I promise it'll be the last time we bug you for it. It's just we need somebody with experience. Hey, I pulled in Ellen's son Anthony to help out. Ellen was the office manager at the time, and none of us never met him before. But he's like, come on down. Truck should be here mid morning, and I'll take care of you. And so, of course, they felt really guilty after all this. And
Mm-hmm.
but I look at it as well. Don't be, because I do believe in destiny, and it was destined to happen. Everything that happened that day was not caused by us. Just to make that clear, it was other parties. The steel
Mm-hmm.
container that was used to package all the granite. One thing, there was 8 bundles of stone in there. Okay, each bundle weighed about 10,000. I'm sorry, it was 6 bundles of stone, and the total weight about 60,000 pounds in a steel container that looked like they dredged out of Boston Harbor. It
Mm-hmm.
was looked like it was rolled over a few times, dented up, rusted. So when that pulled up, we're like, "What the hell is this thing?" So I know it was hard for David for quite some time. You know, to I still have the piece of paper in the hospital, and they wouldn't tell me everything that happened. They wouldn't let me look in the mirror because
Mm-hmm.
they really knew that that would be a hard thing for me to do. But I wrote, on a piece of paper, hero, and with an arrow pointed to him, and he kind of like looked away, like, you could tell he was uneasy about it. But he was the hero because it was his thinking that he always thought of himself as being dumb. I'm not the smartest guy in high school, and this and that. And But it's something he thought of from when he was in, I think, middle school, that you learn that the human brain can go without oxygen for like 6 minutes. So if he didn't think of that, where would I be right now? And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and at the same time, David, you know, he ended up graduating from Boston College with high honors. So it took some time. He took a couple of years off, after high school, and lived out in California for a while, and came home destined to, like, I want to go to college. And he had to work 3 times as hard as anybody else because he had a learning disability for himself to be successful at learning. But
Mm-hmm.
and AJ, I think, same thing. I think AJ is mentally stronger about things, and I think he had some guilt at the beginning that it was his family that possibly caused it. But like, no, it's shit happens. It really was an accident. It wasn't like somebody pushed it over on top of my head. But no, I never had any bad feelings of towards any of them. If anything, I have a lot of disappointment in the people who packaged it, who shipped it, who received it here in the United States when it came over from Italy. Like, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people failed at what they do for work.
Mm-hmm. I used to load containers at one job I had, and how no one died, I don't know. Like we built farm equipment, and like we wouldn't assemble it; we'd send it over in these big parts, and there was big metal frames. Like, man, if there was like hmm, occupational health and
Yeah,
safety,
OSHA in the
OSHA,
United
yeah,
States,
no,
it's OSHA. Yeah,
yeah, same here. So if they would have showed up the days that we were doing that, man, we would be shut down so freaking fast. And I was like 21 years old, like it was just a bunch of kids, and
yeah,
I don't know how we didn't kill somebody.
yeah. It's simply amazing. The steel container that was used, the steel I-beams underneath the container were all bent and twisted from previous accidents. So the
Oh
floor was
my
bouncing
god.
up and down when we were trying to get the stone unloaded, like it was acting like a trampoline. And maybe it didn't help that the tractor trailer is also pulled up slightly on an incline and nothing to stabilize it from rolling back and forth,
Hmm.
side to side. But
Perfect storm.
yeah, literally perfect storm.
Hmm. When you leave work or something, you say, "Oh, goodbye" to your coworkers, and then like 2 minutes later, run into him in the hallway again. It's like awkward. It's like you have to say goodbye again. Is that what it's like for all your friends and family that said goodbye to you in the hospital?
You know, no, it's
Like,
you
oh, you
know,
know what? Never mind.
talking to my family after the fact of like the hardest thing being told is, hey, you know, Mike has a 2% chance of living, and time to go in there and say goodbye. Screw you, I'm not going yet, guys. And
You
you know,
stubborn bastard.
it's, you know, but hearing them talk about it's probably the hardest thing. You know, hearing my brothers or my I've lost both my parents since all this, but you know, hearing their versions of what happened is very hard. You don't like
Oh,
this, you know.
God, I can imagine.
I aged my parents greatly in that, you know, those months. You know, it was just you can see it on people when, you know, uh, when I was in the hospital, my mom made it so that, look, don't let Mike see himself in the mirror. Don't offer any mirrors. Don't let him use the bathroom because there's a mirror in there. So they set up a hopper next to the bed and kind of encouraged me, like, okay, if you have to, you know, go to the bathroom, you know, just use the hopper next to the bed. And then after a while, everybody come in to see you, and you know, people who have not braced themselves well, and like you can just read people's faces looking at you, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, like, you
Yeah, I
know,
can imagine.
the movie Goonies, the movie Goonies when
Yeah.
we were kids. I look like Sloth's shorter, uglier brother. That's how, because my head was so. Finally, after a while, and you know, you're reading faces, and then they sent in a nurse to give me a shave, and he's shaving me with like the dullest you know, disposable razor possible. Then he's like, and finally I'm like, okay, on my good side of my face, I'm like, can you stop? I feel that. And he's like, okay, we're all done. And he grabs the mirror, see, you look great. And I kind of like remember looking, I'm like, huh? And then I went to like kind of grab it with my good arm, and he's like, okay, gotta go. And like he bolts out because he realized he screwed up. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, hmm. So I just remember kind of getting myself out of the bed, and you know, I'm connected up to like all these like IV bags, like on carts and computer things, or you know, whatever the hell they are, monitors.
Mm.
Um, Something I like to smash at this point because those beeping noises are worse. But I
Mm.
start rolling around to get to the restroom, and now my mom comes back in the room. She sees me. She's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, I point to the bathroom. She's, "Oh no, we got a hopper right here." The nurse had walked in too at the same time, and so the two of them are trying to beg me to. No, we got a hopper right here, and I'm like, and I grabbed a piece of paper. I'm like, I want to look in the mirror. And the nurse kind of looked at my mom like, oh, shit. Like, I'll be back. And I went into the bathroom, and I stared, you know, what felt like an eternity, but I was probably in there for like a minute or two. And that's when I saw the horror
Mm.
of, yeah, I look like Sloth. Just my left eye that blew out of my head was moving around on its own and not looking at anything I was trying to look at. And my right eye, all the blood vessels had blown out of it. So it looked like, you know, the devil's eye or something. And my head being the size of a basketball, but also wasn't symmetrical. So it's like kind of pointy and, you know, like sloths from Goonies. And they're
Mm.
probably going to sue me for infringement rights here or whatever. But, and then, you know, my lips were mangled because the way Dr. Durstikissin rebuilt me, they actually went into my mouth and pulled back my lips and inserted a bunch of screws in that way. So everything here
Mm.
looked like Mike Tyson beat the shit out of me, but I beat him with my face. So um, I just look like hell, and all I remember is just saying, "Well, life's over. Guess I'm never gonna have children. Kids are gonna run, you know, away from me, and what woman would ever want anything to do with me?" And you know, you feel at that point. Um, oh, like I'm a loser. Not so much a loser, but you know, life's over. Poor me. I give up, and I went back into the room, and I just sat in a chair looking out the window for a while, and I got my mother crying, and I felt terrible. And
Mm.
at that point, I said, okay, I'm getting the fuck out of this place. And I said, you know, start walking that day continuously every day from that point on to kind of build up momentum to get the hell out.
Mm. So it was
Sorry,
almost
I get
motivation
long
in a way.
winded. What's that?
It was almost motivation in a way, seeing yourself. You're like, well,
It was. I was convinced if I could just get the hell out of here, I'll live. You know, I was kind of getting upset with just, you know, when you're laying in a hospital bed all day, your body absolutely is in agony from just like the back of my head. you just touch it in the pain from just being on a pillow all day. And you can't eat. But every flipping, time the food carts would go by, they would park in front of my room. And this gigantic Italian nose can smell, the food coming down the hallway, and everything on TV was like commercials for food. I'm like, this is so freaking mean. I just want to get the hell out of here. But I still remember when they finally came in after, like, now I'm on the second week. Like, we're going to let you try some food, even though my mouth's wired shut. But, like, we'll let you try to take some food orally and see how you do with them. Okay. I'm like, I get over to the chair. They, give me a tray of, and I remember it was Jello, and they gave me a straw. And then they gave me some chicken broth, like a bouillon cube and water, which tasted amazing. That was so good. I'm trying to drink it, but I have no feeling in my face. So it's just pouring down on me, and I don't give a shit. Now I'm trying to suck Jello through a straw. You ever suck Jello through a straw? It's not possible, and finally I got pissed off. I'm like, okay, because I can't move my lips to kind of get them tight around the straw. So I remember I look at my mother, and she like looks at me, and I just grabbed the Jello, and I started jamming it in between my teeth and trying to get it. And I look like, remember the movie A Christmas Story? The little boy, the mom, it's like, show mommy how a piggy eats. And he said, I'm eating everything. I'm just jamming it in my mouth. And my mom and I were laughing our asses off, because at this point, I'm just grateful to be getting food, and that you could taste it, and how amazing it was just an amazing feeling to like put food in your mouth again after 2 weeks. And because let me tell you, getting fed through a G tube sucks. Having a trach tube sucks. If anybody listening knows anybody who's on a trach tube, I can assure you that person is going through hell, and to please be patient with them and help them any which way, because they're going to want support, because you're just going to want to grab the end of that trach tube and fill with gasoline and light it, because it sucked. So,
remind me not to get my head crushed by anything.
Yeah, don't go near granite that's stacked really in a messed up sort of way. I mean, as you know, you used to load steel cargo containers. Imagine using about $20 worth of Italian 2x3 Italian lumber. So it's 2 inches by 3 inches. Excuse me.
That's the width of what your head went, right? That piece of wood stopped it.
Exactly. So I wish I was able to keep that piece of wood of the point of impact, but we measured it. It was 2 7/8, but I couldn't take it because it was evidence at the time. But yeah, and the granite that fell on me broke in half vertically, but also the wall of stone that was on the other side that we slammed up against, we broke all that horizontally. So I went for a Guinness Book of World Records to see if they had anything for that, but they're like, no, not exactly. No category for that. So
most granite on head. Well, anything you wanted to add before or anything I didn't ask?
I really enjoy your show.
Thanks.
Keep it up. Thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. It makes me happy getting my story out there to help others. I mean, there's so many people in the world who had a trauma, who still have, anxiety, depression, agoraphobia. Agoraphobia, sucked. And I know I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick, but the way I got over agoraphobia, I took on a job that required me to drive 1,500 to 2,000 miles a day. I'm sorry, a week. I
was going to say, holy shit, how fast are you driving?
My ass is killing me sitting in the car all day. But that's what I kind of had to do to kind of, when I started, my 8-year journey of getting back to being normal, I had to come up with antidotes for myself. I'm like, okay, well, if I don't want to be medicated, what am I going to do to distract myself, to overcome some issues? And I took on a job that required that much travel, and that helped me greatly. And when I do overnight,
baby step, it's like you're still you were still kind of in your safe spot. Was your cab or your whatever you're driving? And
just regular automobile. Throughout New England, I'm in telecom, so my company designs engineers like anything that's like cell tower related. I design fiber optic pathways now. Like, not bad for a guy who had a traumatic brain injury and didn't think he'd do more than lick stamps after. Once again, these platforms are out there to help people like you and I. I feel talking about your problems helps mend it. At least for me, I'm a true believer. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And anxiety. Everybody has anxiety. If somebody says they don't have anxiety, they're full of shit.
They're
I don't care.
too anxious to tell you about it.
Yeah. I think it takes more of a man or person to be able to admit they have a problem, and that's just half the battle, is admitting like there's something wrong, whether it's the depression or anxiety, and knowing there's no harm in asking for help. There's no, you got to get off your pride. Like I need help, and know when you need help. And I'm grateful for, like I said, the support system, and grateful for the opportunity of sharing my story with you guys. And really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was amazing. You're such a inspiration, I'll say. Mike's a really great guy. We've chatted quite a few times now, back and forth on messages, but he stuck around and we had a good chat for about a half an hour after the interview. So just a super nice, inspirational, encouraging guy. You can follow Mike on Instagram at titanium_Mike110. Okay, who wants to win some money? $25 from Co-op. So here's your question. When Mike first met his wife when she was younger, what did he buy her? Send your answer to bunnyhugspodcast@gmail. Follow Instagram, bunnyhugspodcast. You've got 5 days to answer. So if you are listening to this on Friday, September 1st, you're too late. But that's all right, because you can listen to that week's episode and enter. So that means you have until Wednesday, August 30th. Send your answer to bunnyhugspodcast@gmail. I will be putting the winner up on Instagram at bunnyhugspodcast, and also I'll announce it on next week's episode. That question again: when Mike first met his wife when they were young teenagers, what did Mike buy his wife, then best friend's little sister? Okay, there you go. Thank you so much, Co-op, for your sponsorship and for these amazing gifts. And thank you, Sun, Saskatchewan Unit of Nurses, for your sponsorship. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to tell people about the podcast / free mental health service, and keep listening. And don't forget to please make your beds and take your meds. Bye.
Registered nurses are on the front lines of this nursing crisis right now. I feel like we don't have all of the resources and the tools and the staff to ensure patient safety 100% of the time.
Everyone is trying their best, but it's not sustainable the way we're going right now. There needs to be something changing.
The nurses across Saskatchewan need to be involved in conversations with the government to try and find solutions. We have ideas, we just need to be involved.
This has been a message from the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses.